Hey there, earliers. I hope you're having a really good week. So we're going to carry on looking at healthy teeth and what we can do to keep our teeth nice and healthy, look after them, and just carry on looking after ourselves. So who is really, really important when it comes to looking after teeth? Now, I'm pretty sure there's somebody that comes and collects them. Could it be the tooth fairy? We're going to have a... What was that? Looks a little bit like a letter. I wonder where that came from. Should we have a look? Oh, it is a letter. Should we read it? Dear Early Years. I think that's to us. Dear Early Years, I heard that you were learning about teeth this week and how to look after them. So I have a little challenge for you. A challenge? I wonder who this is from. After I collect children's teeth from around the world, I bring them back to my fairy island. Oh, someone who collects teeth all around the world. Who do we think that could be? Do you think the tooth fairy heard us speaking about her? Maybe. After I collect children's teeth from around the world, I bring them back to my fairy island. Oh, and help build homes for homeless fairies. Oh, what a kind koala thing to do. So my question is, if you were the tooth fairy, what would you do with all of the teeth? Could you write a letter back to me and let me know? I'm so excited to read what you have come up with. Love from the tooth fairy. She must have heard us. She's written us a letter. How exciting. So, when she collects all of the teeth, it looks like she uses them to help build homes for other fairies. Isn't that a really kind thing to do? Shall we have a think about what we might do if we were the tooth fairy and have a go at writing a letter back to her? Oh, there's a little note here. Oh, it's got her address on it. Oh, and it says, oh, so she's asked that I send the address to your adults. Okay, and then we can send the letter back to the tooth fairy. Oh, how exciting! Wow, I've never had a letter from the tooth fairy before. You guys must be really special. Well, let's have a good think then, shall we? Let's have a think about what we could do with the teeth. But first, it looks like she's asked us to write her a letter back. So I think first off, we need to practice having a go at writing a letter and what we need to do when we write a letter. So let's get our board up. When we're writing a letter, can you have a talk with your adult? What do we need to remember when we're writing a letter? What are a couple of really important things to do when we're writing a letter? You can pause it, have a talk with your adults. What do we need to do when we are writing a letter? Well, let's have a look and see what the tooth fairy's done. Can you see at the very top? She's written Dear Early Years. So she's addressed it, she's written it, and written the name of who she would like the letter to go to. And that is you guys. And usually in a lot of letters, they start with dear or to. Not a deer like the animal, but dear or to. So if we were to write a letter to the tooth fairy, we might put dear tooth fairy or to tooth fairy. Should we do what she's done? Should we write dear, dear? And again, let's have a look at the letter. Whereabouts on the paper has she written? She's written it right at the very top, hasn't she? Right at the very top of the paper. So if we were to write back to the tooth fairy, we're going to make sure, let's pretend this is my bit of paper, we're going to write it at the top. So, dear tooth fairy. And I'm going to start with my capital letter. Capital letter. Dear. And because it's her name, can you see how she's used capital letters? Capital letters for her name, because names are really important, aren't they? You need to remember to use capital letters for names as well. So dear, no, this one, tooth fairy. E. Dear Tooth Fairy. Now here is where it's up to you guys to have a think. Use your imagination. What would you do if you were the Tooth Fairy? What would you do with all of the teeth? Would you maybe build yourself a castle? Could you maybe break the teeth down and use the teeth to use the white as chalk, maybe? Maybe do it for writing. Could you maybe use it for something in your house, like a sofa? You could have a tooth sofa, couldn't you? You might be able to donate, be able to give some teeth to people who maybe don't have very strong teeth and they might need to have fake teeth put in, and maybe you could donate the teeth to those. Because it is mostly children, it's little baby teeth, isn't it? Milk teeth that fall out, and that's what the tooth fairy collects. But sometimes teeth might fall out as an adult. But have a think. Here in the middle, the next part you're writing, that's where you'd write what you would do if you were the tooth fairy. So it would be nice to give yourself some lines to write on, just because then it really helps with our handwriting then, doesn't it? So you might want to say, so it says, Dear Tooth Fairy. You could say, if I were the Tooth Fairy, I would, and then write what you would like. So I'm going to use my capital letter again because it's a sentence. If I, tricky word I, were the, another tricky word, the, again, some name, isn't it? Tooth, capital letter. Tooth, make sure my letters go all the way to the top. Tooth Fairy. And then you would and then this is where you would write, what would you do if you were the Tooth Fairy? Let's have a think. What would I do if I was the Tooth Fairy? What would I do? I quite like the idea of making some furniture. I like the idea of a tooth sofa. Might not be the comfiest, so I might have to get some cushions for it, but I think it would look really, really cool. So if I were the Tooth Fairy, I could make teeth furniture. Teeth furniture. If I were the Tooth Fairy, lots of I's in this one, isn't there? Don't have a lot of in there. Would, again, use those sounds that you know to have a go at writing it. Don't worry, unless you know how to spell it, don't worry too much about how to spell it correctly, because if you did write it like this, I would, that's absolutely fine. I would build, So it's always good when you're writing a sentence to say your sentence and make sure it makes sense. So if I were the Tooth Fairy, I would build. So I would say, would I build tooth furniture or teeth furniture? So say them both. Which sounds better? I would build tooth furniture or teeth furniture. I think teeth sounds a little bit better. So that's the one I'm going to go with. I would build, put my line a bit further down. I would build teeth furniture. Right at the end of my sentence, I'm going to put a full stop. A full stop at the end of my sentence. I'm just going to read it back quickly. Should we read it? Dear Tooth Fairy, if I were the Tooth Fairy, I would build teeth furniture. And now, again, having a think about the letter, how will the Tooth Fairy know that it's from you? What do we need to put right at the end? It's a bit like a card. What do you like right at the bottom? Who it's from. So we need to say who it's from. And you could write from, or you could write love from, couldn't you? And then we could say love from, and then whose name would I put there? I'll put my name, wouldn't I? Because it's my letter. I'm the one writing it to the Tooth Fairy. Love from Miss Porcella. And again, don't forget the capital letters in your name because they are very important. Names are really important. Now, if we do struggle with our writing a little bit, that's absolutely fine. You could always just have a go at writing the first bit and maybe drawing what you would do if you were the Tooth Fairy instead, because that would be really, really nice. But I'd be really excited to see what you come up with if you were the Tooth Fairy. Like I say, use your imagination. You could do anything, couldn't you? You've got a little bit of magic. So I'm really excited to see what you come up with. And I'm sure the Tooth Fairies as well, because how fantastic. And what I'll do is I'll let your adult know the address of the Tooth Fairy, and then you could always send off your letters. And I'm sure she's so excited to read them. But before you send them off, don't forget to take a picture so that you can put it on Tapestry or put it on Dojo so that we can see it as well. So have fun with it. Good luck.